I'm sure you've all heard the expression, you are the company that you keep. Well, that rang true last Saturday when I had the honor of dining with three past winners of the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, Drew Coatney, Matt Miller, and Brad Anderson. Winning the BCBC and about $500,000 in the process is the ultimate goal for every horse player. Yet, as much as I kept lauding their accomplishments throughout the night, all they seemed to want to talk about is how today's guest, who was also at the dinner, is one of the best handicappers they know. The respect level was up to 11, if there are any Spinal Tap fans out there. Today, we're going to go find out why. Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Scatoni, and welcome back for another edition of Best Bet. As I always like to remind folks, this is not a traditional selection show. We're not going to talk about every race. We are just going to look at specific races and wagering strategies that offer the best opportunities to make a decent score. If you're watching live, feel free to leave us a comment or ask us any questions. The show will also be archived on Del Mar's Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube platforms, so you can check it out after. Back to today's guest. You might already know him from his successful show, the HHH Racing Podcast, which is going on its 309th episode. Yes, you heard that right, 309 episode. You've also probably seen his name on the leaderboard of many big contests, including a second place finish in the 2022 Ultimate Betting Challenge and fifth place in the 2021 Pegasus Betting Challenge. But more importantly, back to what I said at the top of the show, three former Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge champions hold this man in such high regard as a handicapper and a horse player that I'm so glad he is with us today so I can pick his brain. Please welcome Howard Kravitz. Howard, what's good?
Frank, how you doing? It's a pleasure to have dinner with you and break some bread last week. And now we're back together again. Pleasure to talk to your great fans that follow Del Mar Racing.
It's awesome to have you. I'm so appreciative. I have so many things I want to talk to you about. But first, tell us a little bit about your podcast, why you started it, and what you have done to carve out your space in a pretty crowded market.
So almost 3 years ago, I decided sort of a bit on a whim to start a podcast. Now, the only reason anyone would know me nationally at all is I'm a big fan of In the Money Media, and I follow Matt Bernier quite a bit, who now is a friend of mine, and I won a contest a few times that he had called the Friday Feature on the In the Money podcast, Matt Bernier show. And so I was on his show 3 times, the first 3-time sort of champion, so to speak, of his contest. And I am a math teacher, full-time math teacher by trade. I feel like that I can explain things very well. And I've been a passionate handicapper and horse racing fan for 30 years. And I thought, you know what? I think I can do this podcast thing. I knew nothing, Frank, nothing about the technology. We just talked about StreamYard, which is the software we're using right now. I was complete debutante when it came to the technology part of it, but I felt like my knowledge and my able to explain and teach was right up there. And I started 3 years ago, and in 3 years, we now have over 3,000 subscribers, almost 2,000 followers on YouTube. And as I'm sure we'll talk about, I've had many fantastic guests, from trainers to jockeys to owners and whatnot. So it's been an incredible experience.
Yeah, that is amazing. I mean, we were texting back and forth, and I said, how many episodes are you guys really at? And you're like, we just did our 308th episode. And to have that kind of longevity and staying power is absolutely amazing. I don't want to get too deep into this here, because I want to encourage everyone to go back and listen to your last couple of shows. And I also know it's an emotional topic for you to talk about, but I'd really be remiss if I didn't mention the incredible job that you and Paul Halloran did, both before and after the Breeders' Cup, covering the remarkable story of Cody's Wish and making his namesake, Cody Dorman, and his family such an integral part of the Breeders' Cup weekend. We're all blown away by the events of last week, and I don't want you to rehash everything you've already talked about, but this is such a special story. So can I ask you, what has all this meant to you and your horse racing family? Because we are a family. Let's face it, we're all in this together. If you've even been able to process what, Codys Passing and what happened.
Yeah, well, I'd be remiss. And you brought up one of my great co-hosts, Paul Halloran. I have another co-host, Pete Visco, who are my co-hosts of my flagship show. And Paul Halloran has gotten to know the family very well in the
Yeah.
last year and a half, and he's in the process of writing a book, Frank, about Cody's Wish and Cody Dorman and the family. So we've had intimate relationship with the Dormans. We've broken bread with them. I've spoken with them at least 6 or 7 times, and not just talking with 5 minutes, not something tertiary, long, conversations about horses and life. It's just an incredible family, and Cody's passing was tragic. Not really unexpected, but just the timing was
Sure.
unexpected. But
Sure.
as I talked about with Paul, we talked about our show. Cody's Wish ran his race, and Cody Dorman ran his race gallantly, with incredible amount of pride and courage. And the whole story has been fantastic. It's just been a great pleasure to get to know the family. And I, again, shout out to Paul Howard, my co-host, who has done a great job. He actually just wrote an article. It came out on X. So if you follow Paul Halloran on Twitter or X, um, he writes for the Saratoga Special newspaper up in New York. So I highly recommend people check out the article they just wrote today about the funeral of Cody Dorman and his passing. But certainly emotional, but really tears of joy. Not only the horse won, but just the life that Cody Dorman lived. Frank, he was only supposed to live to 2 years old at the most, and he would have turned 18 here in a week or two, I believe. So it's just an incredible story.
Yeah, after you left dinner that night, Saturday on the Breeders' Cup, I got to spend a little time with Paul. Turns out we both went to the same college, so we're alma maters of Holy Cross.
That's
He's
right.
a Massachusetts guy, I'm a New York guy, so we instantly bonded. He's a writer, I'm a writer. It was terrific. I haven't read his story today. I know he wrote right after the incident. He wrote on thisishorsracing.com, I think is the Saratoga Special site. Wrote a
Correct.
beautiful article about it, so I encourage people to go look at that. And again, I don't want to belabor this, but I know that you raised some money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which was responsible for Cody meeting Cody's wish to begin with, even before the horse was even named that. Obviously, it was named after Cody. So I just want to bring that out to the public, and thank you so much for doing that. And I'm going to piggyback your bets today, and whatever I make, I'm going to make a donation. So no pressure at all. No pressure.
Terrific.
All right. Well, let's again, people can follow the HHH Racing podcast. It's terrific stuff. Let's talk about handicapping. Let's pivot a little bit. Because every time I talk to Matt Miller, I think he's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And every time I talk to him, he's winner of the 2021 BCBC. He's an amazing live bankroll tournament player, just an amazing player in general. Yet every time I talk to him, he can't sing your praises enough when it comes to handicapping. So first off, just generally, how did you get hooked on horse racing? And secondly, let's dig a little deeper. What is your general approach to handicapping? What tools do you use? How do you analyze a race? What are you looking for, etc.?
Well, I pay Matt very well to say those things, so I appreciate his nice comments. So Matt's a fantastic handicapper and contest player and a great friend of mine. So I appreciate him lauding my praises, although I'm not sure they're as warranted as he puts it out there. So I mainly use DRF products. First of all, I just want to, they don't sponsor our show. I'm a big fan of DRF Formulator, where you can have live links where you can click through and see replays and see
Yep.
breeding. And so I'm a big fan of Formulator. I'm mainly a buyer guy. There's many different speed figs, obviously, Thorographs, the Rags, Brisnet, we can go on. And I don't have anything against the other tools. I just prefer buyers and DRF Formulator in terms of the products I use. I've been handicapping for 30 years, and I think my math background, I think, does help a little bit in terms of analyzing races and understanding numbers, because I think, Frank, a lot of people get lost in the numbers, right? They're not sure what a number particularly means, or, internal fractions. There really is a lot of numbers in horse racing. You certainly don't have to be a math expert, but I think it does help. And then just because I'm solving problems for, every day for the last 27 years, which is how long my teaching career has currently lasted, I'm solving problems every day. And every time you look at a race, you're solving a puzzle, right? It's like a proof in geometry. You're trying to figure out the ins and outs of each horse, trying to understand race flow. And I think my professional background as a teacher with math, I think, does help with the handicapping aspect. And I'm very much a visual handicapper. I watch a lot of replays, maybe more than I should, but sometimes I have more time certain days than others. But I'm very much a visual handicapper, as we'll talk about today. I like to look at gallop outs. I like to look at trips. And so that's a big part of my handicapping.
Yeah, I know when we were going back and forth, you mentioned a couple of different things. Visual handicapping is extremely important. I find there are couple of things that we players still have left that give us a tiny little bit of an edge against the computer guys and all these incredible algorithms. And certainly handicapping with your own two eyes is one of the more important ones. I'm the same way. I use Optics EQ for my trip note stuff, very elaborate notes, but also they have keywords so you can just kind of at a glance look and see if a horse has trouble or if a horse is on the improve or regressing, that kind of thing. But yeah, I agree with you. I try to do as much work as I possibly can myself, because your two eyes, the most important that you have, and I say this, sometimes the most important handicapping you could do is right after the race. You see something, you make a note of it, you use it to go. Talk a little bit more about your math background, because we're back. We froze for a second. Your math background, because I did really well in math in high school, but I am not a math person at all. I'm a word guy, total word guy. So when I look at a race, I'm looking for a story. Each race, in my opinion, tells a story. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. So how do you incorporate that math expertise into your handicapping and wagering?
Well, I think
more important than wagering.
Well, I think one of the main ways is race flow. And, you talked about comments. I want to just give a warning to everyone out there. There are a lot of short comments in many, in DRF and Brisnet. And I would just be cautious about short comments, because, what's a steady, right? A steady could be very slight and mean nothing, or a steady could mean 2 or 3 lengths, right? Or breaking slow. Do they break slow because that's what the horse normally does? Or do they get bumped from the side? So again, I would just caution everyone, the short comments you gotta be careful with. And if you really want to do your accurate deep diving, you should try to watch the race yourself. But from a math standpoint, I think race flow, internal fractions is important. As I said, I use DRF Formulator, and I also use Timeform US, where they have internal fractions coded red or blue. Red being fast, blue being slow. And obviously for a turf race, for example, if you close into slow fractions, you get extra credit. Or if you're a speed horse and you're able to sustain a lead and win or finish well into fast fractions, that's extra credit. So,
right.
I don't usually look at track variance very much. Again, we could get into the weeds for hours, but we don't have the time for that. I'm not really a track variance guy. I usually use Timeform for my blue and red coated figs. But I think internal fractions and closing times, finishing quarters, are extremely important in horse racing.
I agree with you 100%, especially here at Del Mar. When the horses are at Santa Anita, that turf course is a little more speed favoring for forwardly placed horses. But when you come to Del Mar, you want horses who can finish races. You need that final quarter time to be very strong, and that's one of my essentials. That's a huge tool in my toolbox as well. We were going back and forth a little bit, and you mentioned workouts. Again, I think the most important thing a handicapper and horse player can do is know their strengths and their weaknesses. And I am the first person to admit that I could watch 10 workouts of a horse, and all I see is a horse exercising. I can't tell the subtleties. I'm terrible. I leave that to people who have better eyes than I do, and I'll use their information. I don't trust myself to look at a workout and say, oh my God, this horse is a beast. Tell me a little bit about that, because I know that's something that you incorporate.
We do. If I could just shout out, we also have a Power Picks tip sheet on our website. They go to hhhracingpodcast.com. We sell very inexpensive Power Picks tip sheet that comes out every Saturday, Frank. If I could just plug that, I highly recommend people look into that for sure. We're well over 220 on our ROI, by the way, with our spot plays, which, if you're familiar with ROI, is pretty good. Is $1.60 is the national average. Again, with workouts, people love bullets, right? They see the bullet, or they see the minute or the 47. It's a wow moment. If the horse has to be asked a lot, look, a lot of horses can go a minute and 47, 47 for 4 furlongs. It depends how they do it, right,
Right.
Frank? And I'm a big fan of XBTV. For people that are familiar with XBTV, I watch as many workouts as I can. And I've just recently last year begun to get into the horse ownership business as well. And so I've been to Saratoga, I've been to tracks. I'm watching these horses more in the morning to see how they work. And I think you really have to have an eye for that. It's something I'm working on as a handicapper, because not all minute, bullet works are the same when you see them on the page.
I didn't realize you were dipping your toe in the ownership water. Are you looking for claiming horses, or are you looking going to 2-year-old watching previous horses work out and try and find something, a diamond in the rough, that kind of thing? Tell me about that, because I had no idea you were doing that.
Yeah, I actually a horse that ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Sprint called Shards. Perhaps you remember that horse that finished
Yes.
a very good fifth for Crownsway Racing. I have a very small piece of Shards along with
Okay.
Paul Halloran and many people. So shout out to Crownsway Racing. And my sort of bigger ownership piece are with Adelphi Racing, which is out in New York. They have a horse that's sort of popular named Funny How, which is a horse that some people might know out of New York. And so I have a few pieces of horses with Adelphi. I think most people know that owning horses is not a winning proposition in general. But I have been able to save some money, and I'm a school teacher, Frank, so I don't make $500,000 a year or anything. But I've been able to save some money, and I wanted to get into the ownership business, and it's been an incredible experience. It's been a little bit frustrating at times as well, as it is naturally. But I've learned more about the condition book and the ins and outs of ownership, which a lot of people don't get to see. And
Yeah.
I don't have fractional ownership like my racehorse. There's nothing wrong with my racehorse, but this is real legitimate money that I've spent on mainly 2-year-olds. I like to sort of dream big a little bit. I'm not really into the claiming game with the ownership groups that I'm in. They go to the sales and try to buy horses between like 70 and 120 that are somewhat reasonable,
Right.
and see what we can do with those types of buys.
Yeah, several years ago, I dipped my toe in the ownership game as well, and it was a great experience. And I tell everybody, if you could bottle the feeling that you have when your horse wins a race, and you're standing in the winner's circle, you would be a gazillionaire. There is nothing like that feeling in the world. You're like a proud parent, and it's just exhilarating.
It's amazing. I had that. I've only been in the winner's circle once with a horse that I own, and it was actually at Saratoga, of all great places. It was this past summer. Or a horse called Certified Lover Boy won a maiden special weight on the dirt, and I was in the winner's circle, and I was there for it. It was out of body experience. So hopefully that'll happen many more times, Frank. It's not easy, especially places like Del
No,
Mar and San Anita and Saratoga and the main circuits. But
it's
hopefully I'll have more than one shot at that.
it's not easy at all. And I'm glad you said that, because I have a friend who, the very first time he got involved with a horse, that horse won. And he's thinking, oh, this is the greatest thing. This is so easy. And I said, I'm not trying to be a downer. You enjoy this moment. I just want you to understand that what had just happened, you won a race at Del Mar. Do you know how hard that is? That is so hard. Enjoy this feeling, savor it, because it might never happen again. And
Very
3 years
difficult.
later, when I saw him, he said, Frank, oh my God, you were so right. I haven't won another race.
Well, I think what a 19-year-old young lady won yesterday for the first time at Del Mar, a young owner. I think in the last race I saw it on FanDuel. So listen, anyone could be an owner if you just know the right people. Whether it's 1% or 100% of the horse, it all means the same. It's very special.
It is very special. Let's switch to wagering, because before we get into the actual races, I want to talk to you about your approach. When you look at a card and you're trying to pick and choose your spots to try and make some money, which is what that's the name of the game. I mean, you could walk up to somebody, oh, I had 7 winners today. Well, that's good for you, but how much money did you make? It's about making money. So
yeah, there's a question,
tell us
by the way,
about
in the
that.
comment that's asking how I use the condition book in my handicapping. I don't necessarily use the condition book in my handicapping. It just helps me understand, why certain horses are going a certain distance, because, yeah, thanks, speed of the horse. sometimes you wonder, why is this horse going a mile when they should be going 7 furlongs? You can only go what the secretaries are writing, right,
Right.
Frank? I mean, so sometimes horses are not, owners and trainers have to put horses in races that are not ideal for them. So that's just, if you know the condition book, that could help you a little bit with intent in terms of the distance they're going. In terms of handicapping, I prefer horizontal plays. I'm more of a pick 4, pick 5 kind of guy. As you know, we're talking. I spent a little in the pick 6 today in New York because they have a carryover. I prefer horizontal betting. I'm learning to play vertically a lot more and better. I know Matt Miller is big on doubles and playing a little more vertically, and I'm trying to play more vertically because frankly, you have a better chance of cashing more tickets. But I wouldn't necessarily would say you've a chance of cashing for more money, but you do happen to cash more often. And if you're more of a weekend warrior, sometimes it's nice just to see the ball go through the hoop, right? And to hit some exactas or trifectas or some win bets as opposed to always searching for the pick 4 or pick 5. So I play a combination of horizontally and vertically, and I'm working on my skills every day. Just because you've been doing this a long time doesn't mean that you certainly know everything, and I'm learning. We're going to talk about one of my favorite vertical plays a little bit later, although it sort of went up in flames based on a scratch, but we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, we'll get to that because I read the race the same way that you did, and when you told me about that scratch, that changed the whole complexion of the race. One last topic before we actually get to the couple of races that you want to talk about. Let's talk about tournaments. I know you've had some success. Like I mentioned in the intro, we were sitting around with 3 guys who won the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. Contests are a whole different animal. And you have to have a completely different mindset if you're going in there to win a live bankroll contest. I mean, that's real money. So tell us about your experience with that, what you like about them, why you decided to play them, and what's on in the future for you. Which are you targeting any certain tournaments to get involved in?
So I really have not been a contest player that long, only a few years. In fact, I think the first contest I played was at Arlington, Long Live Arlington International in
Yeah,
2019. There's no real negative reason why I didn't play contests. I just really wasn't really familiar with them, Frank. And I became more familiar with them. I much prefer live money
yeah.
contests as opposed to like your $2 mythical win plays. Of course, those can be live also, but I'm not a huge fan of your pick and praise and your $2 mythical win plays. I much prefer your live money where you can bet exactas, tries, doubles, and you can bet, anything you want up to your bankroll. And I have to credit Matt Miller for helping me a lot in guiding me through the maze and the difficulty that is live money contest. And as you said, I've had some success, and I owe that to many different people. And it is a whole different ball game than just your betting day to day. I made a very good run this past last Saturday. I was 7th with 2 races left in the BCBC, and then unfortunately I crashed and burned in the last 2 races, which I talked about on my podcast because I just sort of went for it. But I was proud of that. But it's very exciting. I definitely have the BCBC every year on my radar. The NHC I've qualified now for a second time in 2 years, which is going to be in Vegas, which is $2 mythical, which is not necessarily my strength, but I did well last year, finished 40th out of 700 and some in my first NHC. And as you said, I've done well in the Pegasus and whatnot. So I really recommend everyone try contests, and you don't have to buy in for 500. There's low
Right.
rollers. I know California does a great job. New York, buy in for $50 and have a feel for how contests work and start at a low value. There's no reason to jump into the deep end with the sharks, in a $2,000, $3,000 contest.
That's great advice. Pete Fornatell and I, way back in the day, we used to play, and they brought it back again. But used to be it was a $40 contest at Santa Anita. The prize was only 500, but I am telling you, this was the toughest field. Duke Matisse, James Henry, Tom Quigley, all the Sharpie, Leo Vukmanovich, all the Sharpies out here in California were playing that contest, and that's really how that's how I cut my teeth. And next time you talk to Pete, ask him about that, and he'll have some stories. The NHC champ, Jose Arias, standing around, he'd be there. I look around the room and I go, oh my God, these are the guys I'm going to. I'm only going to win $500 if I win, and this is the field I have to beat.
Oh, well, this
Tough.
picture behind me that I'm pointing at, that was my best contest score ever. That was the 2022 Santa Anita handicap when Express Train beat Warrant. If you remember that race in March of last year, I played like a $3,000 straight exacta and crushed it, and that got me to second in the Ultimate Betting Challenge. So that's what I have there behind me in case people are wondering.
I love it. That's awesome. All right. Well, I could talk general topics with you all day long. But you know what? Let's move on to the card. I know there are a couple of races you wanna focus on. We've got a 9-race card here on Sunday, and even though the field sizes so far haven't been as good as the summer, there still should be some decent opportunities if you can pick and choose the right races. I know you've got a couple of spot plays, so let's start in race 4, everyone. It's a $50,000 starter allowance for fillies and mares going 8 furlongs on the turf. The rails are at 0 feet, something I'm sure Howard will talk about. Morning line favorite is number 4, arugula, which is also a very, very good dessert, by the way. Just ran second at this level last time, but she had the lead and lost as the 3-5 favorite on a Santa Anita turf course that is way more kind to front runners than this Delmar course. She could win. I thought a few others had a shot in here, but why don't you talk us through this race?
So a few things. I know we skipped. There are some really talented maiden races early where there's workouts people need to check out. So I would just make sure, like a fair in the first race, real quick, has been working with a horse called Tamara. Heard of that horse? And in the third race, Nafisa has been working with Coach Prime, who just won Friday. So anyway, again, I know we're skipping those races, but there's some very talented races early. In race 4, so the rails are down, and I don't know how you feel, but when the rails are down, I think that absolutely helps closers for sure, especially Del Mar at San Anita. And also, it's obviously very lush turf course. So I looked at in general for closers. That doesn't mean Rugula can't win race 4. I think a lot depends on what the rail horse Tickle My Fancy does. I'm hoping that horse at least makes Rugula work a little bit. But I'm very interested in number 2, Mahina. And the reason I'm interested in Mahina is twofold. Number one, when that horse won on October 20th at San Anita, the rails were way out. And I give extra credit for a horse that wins when the rails are out. I know it's only a maiden claiming, but I like horses that are progressively getting better. And we talked about replays, Frank. There's a few horses coming out of the Rugula race, including Precious Time, the number 6, who's 3-1, who got an absolutely perfect trip of trips, and I don't imagine that happening again. So because of that, I'm a little bit against the 6, and also the 5 was in that race, who gets Flavian and is going to take money, but I don't think did much running. So I'm sort of looking at the fresh face angle here with Mahina. I don't know if that horse can beat the 4, but that horse I would definitely be using in my horizontals and verticals.
I agree with you 100%. That's my top pick in the race. We talked earlier about final the way horses finish. This horse was in a maiden claiming event and came home in under 23 seconds.
Yes.
This horse can finish. And I love that, Patty Gallagher is now protecting the horse after offering the horse for a tag. The other thing, this is something that I find very, very interesting. And this is just anecdotal evidence on my part, but typically I'm against horses when they try winners for the first time. But I feel like when it comes to turf racing, it doesn't really matter that much if that horse shows that kind of finishing ability. Because to me, that tells me that that's a decent racehorse. In dirt races, I think it means a lot. But in turf races, it sounds counterintuitive, but for some reason, I don't think it's that much of a disadvantage.
Well, Rugula's 1 for 8. Precious Time is 1 for 8. First Time Forever is 1 for 7. And sure, Mahina only has 1 win, but this is a horse affiliate's improving. She's also a 3-year-old, and 3-year-olds at this time of year can improve just as much as early in the year. So again, I just like the fresh face angle, and not only that, Mahina also has a B as in boy workout, and it looks like is on the improve, while others are just continually doing the same thing over and over. So I think I am hoping to get more like 7-2, 4-1 with this horse. I think that's very possible.
So in your wagering, is this just a straight up win bet for you?
Yeah, I would. I like to put value lines on horses. What I believe the horse should go at. I would not but put a win bet on Mahina at anything lower than 5-2. 5-2 would still
Yeah.
be a little low for me. But if the horse is 3-1, maybe 5-2, I'll just put a straight win bet, probably with the 4 Rugula, because that horse can easily wire the field. I'm just against Precious Times and the Pratt horse in general in race 4.
Okay. Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, if you can throw out a horse that's going to take a lot of money right away, you have value in the race. So I love that approach. Let's move on to race 5, a $20,000 maiden claiming event for fillies and mares, going 5.5 furlongs on the main track. Morning line favorite is number 1, Tiff with Jimmy at 5-2. She just lost as the 7-10 favorite at this level in distance while getting a 7-pound weight break. She loses that weight break, but she gets the services of Pratt instead. So, she's going to take some money. When Pratt's out here in California, no offense to the other jockeys, but he just makes them look like rank amateurs. He just rides on a completely different level. When I first cut my teeth watching racing, Jerry Bailey was the big jock. He was always in the right spot at the right time, never got his horses in trouble. Pratt is just like that. The guy is light years above the colony out here. But that said, I thought there were a few others in here who were worthy of consideration, and I know there's someone that you want to talk about. It's 7-2 on the morning line here.
One thing I've learned over the years, Frank, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I think the lower the level of the horse, the less the jockey matters. Because look, if a horse can only do what it can do, sure, a jockey would help and whatnot, but the one first time it got a perfect trip last time and lost to, I believe, was a 17-1 shot, Tiff with Jimmy. Can the one win? Sure.
Right.
But I much, again, rather go with a fresh face. And I like number 2, Always Smiling here. Now, this horse has done no running on paper in her first 2 starts, right? She got a 28 buyer last year at Churchill and then came back last time and lost by 38 lengths. Okay. And so, but I actually like that, because that race, Frank, was like a grade 1 versus the horses she's facing today. This is a very weak field. There's 3 horses, including the one, that are coming out of the same race. None of them did much for me at all. The blinkers come off Always Smiling. The biggest drop in racing, as you know,
Yep.
maiden special maiden claiming. She has a B as in boy workout recently with the blinkers off, and a B workout for this level horse is extremely impressive. I will admit I did not see the workout. I'm just going with a fresh face. People can have the Pratt horse at 7-5 if they want. I think Always Smiling, if she gets a decent trip, can easily win this race and should nowhere be near 7-2, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. So when you're approaching it from a wagering standpoint, what's your cutoff point for this horse? And would you maybe do some doubles with your Mahina in the previous race going forward to this race?
No doubt. I mean, I would go as low as 2-1 on this horse. I know people at home are saying, why isn't he giving long shots? Look, you can only do what the race card gives you when these races present for themselves, as we talked about. There's some smaller fields today. So, I would bet this horse as low as 2-1, probably. And I would absolutely play a 2-2 double. And I think a 2-2 double, I mean, I think we're getting 3-1, 7-2 to maybe, 2-1. As you know, morning lines matter quite a bit, especially horizontally. I think that $2 double 2-2 could pay upward, maybe $30 even. Wouldn't shock me. I'd be happy to start my day with a 14-1 double and play that for a few bucks with 2 horses that I think are very, very possible to win, and neither one will be favorites, Frank.
Right. I was going to say in races where the favorite doesn't have to win. So
Right.
Once you establish that fact, you're getting extra value by connecting those 2 winners. So I like that. The 4-5 double. I'm going to play that myself. Let's move on to race 7, maiden special weight for 2-year-olds going 1 mile on the turf. Again, we mentioned the rails at 0 feet. Morning line favorite is number 5, American Hope at 5-2. Pratt's presence says a lot, and I do think this D'Amato trainee is live today, making second start, stretching out after a decent late run in a sprint last time. But again, these are young horses, and I think a bunch of these are eligible to improve as well as that one. What's your plan here?
Again, this is a replay special. People, if you want to do your homework, watch the race that Al Ray and the 5 American Hope are coming out of, because they both had trouble in the race, and they're both meant to be better. Of course, D'Amato's excellent second time out, But the number 2, El Rey Rey, Jeff Mullins, is 18%, second time out last 5 years, 40% in the money. And for my money, I thought El Rey Rey had more trouble in that race. Basically wasn't asked much at all. Tried to come up the inside, had to steady and had to angle out. And if you watch the gallop out, Frank, and I'm a big fan of gallop outs in general, although
Yeah.
not every gallop out is the same. But I thought the 10 was absolutely finishing better. Sorry, the 10, El Rey Rey was the 10 in that race, is the 2 today. I thought El Rey Rey was finishing faster. This is a horse, I believe, by Caraconti, out of a Not for Love dam, a cherry bomb. Didn't cost a lot, but I just love what I saw by the visual. And again, the D'Amato horse is probably going to be lower odds than the Jeff Mullins horse. And if you watch the replay, I see no reason why El Rey Rey can't beat American Hope. So I think I would definitely probably go with one of those two. They both looked like sort of preps, for this to go sprint to route. I think they're both very live.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, El Rey Rey had to break from the 10 hole in a 6 furlong turf sprint. It's not the post that you want when they draw the race, and yet still finished up very well with trouble. Mullins very good with second time starters, very good stretching out horses. Cedillo got injured earlier in the year. He's back. He's hungry. He's got a very live mount here today, so he's going to try and make the most of it. I like that too. Again, though, let's talk about from a wagering perspective. You're going to hang a value line on this horse?
I'd probably insist on 3-1. These are two-year-old horses going 2 turns, a lot of them the first time. So it's hard to be real confident with any of them. I would say about 3-1. And then of course D'Amato's got another one, number 4, Bandwagon, who could easily, wire the field for Little Red Feather. And shout out to Billy Koch. I think they do a great job, Little Red Feather Racing, who just had Gold Phoenix finish a really good 4th in the Breeders' Cup turf, which is really quite an accomplishment for that horse. But I'd say 3-1. I'd want to see the board. I think the D'Amatos are going to take most of the money, right? And I think El Rey Rey could easily be second choice. I'd like to see this one show a little more early speed and just sort of tuck in the pocket and then tip out late and hopefully go by the D'Amatos.
All right. So we're going to move on to race 8. I know the complexion of the race has changed because there's a key scratch with Power Surge, the other speed in the race. I'm just going to set it up. It's the $100,000 Betty Grable, a 7 furlong main track affair for Calbred fillies and mares. I know, it changes your pick a little bit, but I still want to talk about the race because of the way you constructed your bet before the scratch, because we can talk a little bit more about when you talk about playing in-race bets, like all the vertical bets, and how you approach that. A, just talk us through the race, and then B, let's talk about the strategy you had outlined before the key scratch.
My favorite vertical play is a reverse key trifecta, or some people call it a back wheel, where I like to try to find a horse, Frank, between, let's say, 5-1 and 15-1, sort of a middling price, and really press up with that horse in second and third. Because, Frank, how many times have you gone to the racetrack with your buddies, say, who's going to win? Who's going to win? Who's going to win? Guess what? If you can figure out who's going to finish second or third, or likely to finish, that has just as much value, in my opinion, as who's going to win, especially from a vertical perspective. So in this race, before the scratch, I thought the 1, Chancery Way, who's by far the horse to beat now and will probably win and get loose, would possibly get into a speed duel with Power Surge, who scratched. The number 3, Glorious Spring, for Flavian, who, by the way, I love Flavian, because people might say, Howard, you keep betting against Flavian. I love Flavian, but it's all situational, right, Frank?
Right, exactly.
This horse is one of the few closers in the race. And one of my key handicapping angles, Frank, in any race is to find either lone speed or lone closers, the best closers. And in this case, 3 to me is the best closer in the race. I think this horse is going to love the turn back, which I also very much love turnbacks as well. And I think this horse can be finishing fastest late. Will she win? Highly unlikely now, especially with Power Surge out. But can she clunk up and finish second or third? I think that's very possible. And I send you an email, some possible trifectas. I'd probably just put the 1 now on top only. And I think you can upgrade the 8. So I go like a 1, probably 1-3-8 even straight trifecta. Maybe throw the 7 in there, or 1-8-3 straight trifecta even, and just key the horse in second or third, the number 3 Glorious Spring, and try to get your value that way, because I think Chancery Way is going to be 7-5 and probably very tough to beat. So you can still make money in a race with a big favorite if you can find a key horse underneath in second or third. I usually do it with closers in a race with a lot of speed.
Sure. And I agree with you. And unfortunately, with the scratch of that horse, it does make Chancery Way a way more likely winner than she was already. Let me ask you this, though, because we're talking about wagering strategy, and this is a big part of this show. You key the horse in second and third. Horse goes off at 8-1. Let's say the horse wins. What do you do then? Do you have some insurance win money? Do you have doubles alive to the horse? What do you do?
Not usually doubles. I definitely have that insanity win bet insurance. Actually, what I usually do, Frank, and I recommend people do this more often than when I don't go to the OTB very often, but I hear people talk about this, is I'll probably put like a 50-cent trifecta with the 3 on top. And I do a graduating scale. Maybe I'll do a $1.50 or $2 try with the horse in second, and maybe a $5 try with the horse in third. Or if I really feel like Glorious Spring, the number 3, can finish second, maybe I'll do a $5 try second, $3 try third. Wherever I think the horse is most likely to finish, I will press up with that opinion and weigh more heavily in that trifecta. There's no reason. I would highly recommend people do not exacta or trifecta box. Boxing just means you don't have an opinion. It's a lazy way out without being disrespectful to people. You need to have opinions. If you don't have opinion, then I would rather skip the race rather than play a box, because that means you really don't have an opinion as to who will finish ahead of the other.
Right. You're basically weighting 2 horses exactly the same.
Yes.
And typically that's not you. When you handicap a race, more often than not, you're going to like one horse a little more than another. And that's how you have to get your path to the winnings. Howard, this has been amazing and so illuminating for me. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I encourage everybody to listen to the HHH Racing podcast. Tell us where you can find it.
So we have shows on Wednesdays and Thursday nights. Our flagship show is Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We also have an offshoot show, and you met some of the hosts of our show called Bettin' and Boozin', which is on Wednesday nights at 9. Has some younger hosts who are really good handicappers. But you can find us on YouTube. Just go to the YouTube search bar, type in HHH Racing Podcast. Make sure you smash that like button, the notification bell, and hit that subscribe button. And then we have a really great website as well, hhhracingpodcast.com, one word. We have pictures, stories, handicapping. Our Power Picks tip sheet is there also, so they can see examples. We cover all bases, and we love covering California. So please check us out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, that wraps up this edition of Best Bet. I'll be back next week with my Saturday handicapping seminar on track at Del Mar in front of the Hacienda Room. And of course, again on Sunday for this show. Come say hi. As I always like to say, good luck to us and let's make some money. Thanks for watching, everybody. And a special thanks to you, Howard Kravitz, for being my guest today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck. Crush your bets at Del Mar.
Right. As my buddy Tom Quigley said, don't be afraid to win.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Right. Signing off.